Welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Wolfman. This is a new werewolf movie that just hit theaters. I went and saw it on Thursday. I think it is Saturday or Sunday now, depending on when this episode goes up. Probably Sunday morning, I think. I'm getting to it a little bit later than I typically would. Normally, I will go see a movie and then immediately put my review up. But this one irritated me to such an extent. I was like, I need a couple of days to just compose my thoughts and figure some stuff out. It is very cold also in Colorado right now, so my dog is in the house. Apologies in advance if you guys can hear any strange noises in the background, or if he exasperatedly sighs like he pays bills in this house. He is inside at the time of me recording this video, so just apologies in advance for any headphone wearers that will hear him making some noise in the background. So Wolfman, for anyone who is not familiar with this film, is starring Julia Garner and Christopher Abbott, both of whom I enjoy in other things, by the way, who are a married couple. They have a young daughter, and they are going on a trip back to the Oregon sort of wilderness to visit the family home of this character, Blake, played by Christopher Abbott. And while they are there, they are attacked by this creature who is a werewolf, and Blake finds himself infected with this same illness. Now, in 2025, in my personal opinion, we have come way too far in movies and in CGI and practical effects to still continue to have werewolf movies that are this bad. I'm not sure that this one has gotten very good reviews just on the couple of days that it's been in theaters, but I thought this movie was terrible for a multitude of reasons. I will start with kind of the one thing that I liked about this movie, and I think the one thing that is the most unique about it is that this is probably one of the few werewolf movies that we have gotten where there are scenes in this that are from the perspective of the werewolf, i.e. you get to kind of see through his eyes what he sees, how he sees his own family, how he sees the world around him, just the differences in specifically vision, and I did enjoy that. But the rest of this movie, the script is so bad, the acting is not great, and I don't think it is because of the actors that are in it. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, Julia Garner and Christopher Abbott have been in other projects. Julia Garner, for instance, stands out to me for her role in Ozark, which she was phenomenal in. But I think if you put a really good actor into a really bad script, it's going to be very difficult for them to act their way out of that bad script. And I think that's exactly what we have here. There are a lot of things in this story that just, in my opinion, for a werewolf film, just don't make very much sense. The little girl in this drove me nuts the entire time. I don't mean specifically the little actress that plays in this. Again, good actor, bad script, you're not going to have a good time. I think the actress is fine. I think the way that the character is written is awful. I think the little girl specifically, Matilda, I believe her name is, she's 11 in real life. Before I had looked her up or knew anything about her, I pegged her in the movie as being around the age of 11 or 12, but the character is written like a 5 or 6 year old. The behavior of this child, the way that she interacts with her parents is very under what the age of the girl actually looks, in my opinion, and it gets a little aggravating. I also really did not enjoy that the daughter and mother in this instance really don't behave the way that everyday people would. They seem to be not very bothered by the fact that their father and husband is turning into a werewolf. Yes, they are afraid, but they're not really the majority of the time running and screaming and really trying to do much about it. And the ending of the film, I think, is really kind of just incredibly unsatisfying, considering that I believe they would have let it continue to go for a lot longer if it wasn't for their own lives being at stake at that point. But this movie just overall, was not incredibly scary. It was mostly just very boring. Like, the pacing of this is very slow. It's one of those movies that feels like it's 8 hours long, even though I don't think it's very long. I don't exactly know how long this one is. Probably an hour and a half would be my guess, but it feels twice as long as that. And I can sit through like a 3-hour film and have it not really feel like I've been sitting there for 3 hours. But this one dragged and dragged and dragged. And it's surprising because I feel like at the same time, it was a very basic story. Like, there was nothing particularly shocking or new. Like, there's nothing in Wolfman that brought anything new to the werewolf franchise. I think the last really great movies that we've had that either had werewolves in them or were pertaining to that came out a long time ago. Like, obviously Underworld had them, and I very much enjoy that. But as far as like a really good just story, acting, all of the things, I think American Werewolf in London or American Werewolf in Paris were probably the best ones. And those ones came out, in the 80s? I just don't think that we have had anything good since then. And like I mentioned at the beginning, like, we've come too far to still have werewolf movies that are this terrible. I think the practical effects in this are also really bad. The way that they decided to create this creature, or the way that they made it look, the creature creation aspects of this, I think is probably one of the worst versions of werewolves that I have seen. And it just overall is like, he kind of knew what was going to happen before they got there. Like, he'd had this experience as a child, not to give too much away, but there was an experience that he had with these creatures when he was much younger. And he sort of just never brings that up. He never mentions it to his family. He's never concerned about bringing them back there. And then it's instantaneously, there is this terrible thing that happens. And I don't know, it didn't have any of the elements of a good werewolf movie for me, which to me is incredibly sort of depressing, and why it's taken me so long to do the review, because I can think of, good vampire movies that we have had within the last 5 years. I can think of good zombie movies, good monster films. Werewolves seem to be just the only aspect of like a monster film that we do not seem to have any really, really good iterations of. And I'm wondering why that is. Like, someone please, I don't care if it's Robert Eggers, I don't care who has to do what, like, somebody step up and get us a good script, some good practical creature effects, and make us a good werewolf movie. Like, dang it. Those of us who really like those types of things, like the monster films, really deserve a good werewolf film. Like, I don't want to have to keep going back and watching Teen Wolf just to get my fill of, halfway decent werewolf films. So for me, this one was a total dud. It was a total loss. I do not think it is worth going to see in theaters for sure. I don't even think I would have watched this one on streaming. Like, having seen it now, I would not watch this one again. I don't think it was good or worth kind of like watching more than one time. But I would love to know what you guys thought of Wolfman if you have seen this one. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.